Mary McLean Asbill, Director of the North Carolina offices of the Southern Environmental Law Center. Mary McLean has worked as an environmental lawyer for over 25 years. And today she leads the policy decisions and advocacy efforts in the North Carolina General Assembly, where she fights for us and our natural resources. To quote Mary McLean, protecting our air, water, and communities is a true honor. Working for SELC inspires me and makes my children proud of me. But today we are the ones who are honored. Thank you for making the time to come, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. She's got a presentation for us, and then there'll be some time at the end for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ashley, so much. Thank you all. And if it's okay with you, I am fine if people have questions throughout.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, I'm kind of a rambler, so it's not going to rattle me, get me off track. I love conversation, but I'm also happy to save some time at the end as well. And I put some materials on the back few chairs. One is SELC, the organization where I work, magazine, where we have a couple of news articles about recent work. The second one is a document that the lobbyist in my office, who actually does the work at the General Assembly, I don't do that any longer, puts together about things that the North Carolina General Assembly has passed in that past session that's harmful to the environment. And unfortunately, that document this year is 3 pages long. So you can take a look at it. You know, a lot of them are nuanced, but they all add up to harm to our precious environment. The third thing is an article in the New York Times that has happened since Hurricane Helene, and a reporter from the New York Times called us to talk about what are some things that your legislature in North Carolina has done that has impeded or made it harder to be resilient in our beloved mountains, and certainly not caused the horrible hurricane, but did not help at all with mitigating it. And I also just want to acknowledge Hurricane Helene. We have all been carrying a lot of heavy weight for these past couple weeks. I hope that any of you that have homes or friends or family up there, I hope that everyone's doing all right. We at the Southern Environmental Law Center, we have an Asheville office, and we have 8 people in that office, and everybody is safe, and all of our partner groups that we work with out there are all safe and accounted for. Many still don't have, most still don't have water, many don't even have power, but our office is back open downtown with no water. So that's a whole interesting ball of wax, but it's just the way they're living up. They have internet and power, so they are just feeling good to be together and be back connected with us. So thinking about everyone, and this hurricane is really going to impact our work and our partners out there probably forever. So I just wanted to acknowledge it. As Ashley was so nice to give me that lovely introduction, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. My name is Mary McLean Asbill. I'm Tar Heel born and bred. I was born in Greensboro, and I live in Raleigh now. I went to college here at the university, was an English major, just had fun talking to Hannah, who's a freshman here in Chapel Hill. I lived in Washington for a little while, working for a big law firm, and then went to law school at the University of Georgia. So I started my practice in Atlanta, and then we moved our family up here to Raleigh in 2007. So the Southern Environmental Law Center's office is right here in Chapel Hill. You may or may not know that. Our North Carolina office, or our Chapel Hill office, is in the Greenbridge building, which is on the corner of Rosemary and Merritt Mill, an easy walk from here. Right behind where Crooks Corner was, maybe again. And we are actually getting ready to be super close neighbors to y'all. In December, we are moving into the what I refer to as the NCMB building. We're going to be on the Rosemary Street side, so our address will be 136 East Rosemary Street, and we're going to be on the 5th and 4th floor in that building. So we're really excited to be a little bit closer to the campus and out and about. So that's my introduction, orients you to me and where my organization is here in town. We have about 60 staff here in Chapel Hill.
Wow.
31 lawyers, and the rest are administrative staff, development staff, communications. You're gonna get to see some of their work. We also have a geospatial team, which is great. They put together all these beautiful maps and diagrams and data for all of the staff at SELC region-wide to use. I've never spoken to a Sunday school class before about my work. I'm a Sunday school teacher. I just rolled off being senior warden at my church in Raleigh. I go to Christ Episcopal Church downtown. So I just wanted to open our session, if it's okay, with a very short prayer. And it's a collect for stewardship of creation. I understand that y'all are doing a lot of great work here with your creation care, and really doing what you can to think globally and act locally. So if you'll indulge me to open us with prayer, that would be great. O merciful Creator, whose hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature, make us, we beseech thee, ever thankful for thy loving providence, and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of thy bounty. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who with thee and the Holy Spirit liveth and reigneth, one God, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about the Southern Environmental Law Center and what we do. And then after talking with Ashley a little bit, I'm going to sort of let you know the lay of the land with regard to our legislature and our courts here in North Carolina. Those are the areas where we operate. And that's going to get a little grim. And then I'm going to tell you about some of our ideas for protecting the environment anyway, or in spite of that. And then I have a short list of things that my lobbyist tells me we're going to be working on in the next session, which will not start until January. So that's kind of what I have planned. But again, interrupt me, ask me questions, whatever you would like. So, Southern Environmental Law Center's mission is to protect the basic right to clean air, clean water, and a livable climate, to preserve our region's natural treasures and rich biodiversity, and to provide a healthy environment for all. We cover 6 states. We have 9 offices in those 6 states and an office in DC. So we have some federal lobbyists and folks that work on Capitol Hill day in and day out, thank goodness. Our headquarters is in Charlottesville, Virginia, so that's our largest office. It has a legal team, but it also has sort of our back office folks, the good development folks who are raising our funds, communications, HR, payroll, finance, all that. The next office that opened was here in Chapel Hill, back in this same building, the Nations Bank building, back in the late 80s. And the thought at the time when those 2 offices opened in college towns was that we could open a very small nonprofit and benefit from free work or free help from the universities, both the professors there and then the law students there. And so that's how we got started. The next office we opened was Atlanta. We stayed with those 3 offices for many years. I started out in the Atlanta office. And then over time, it was our goal to have an office in each of our 6 states. And we finished that up with opening our Nashville office probably about 10 years ago. So we have been operative in all 6 states for quite some time. We have over 200 staff now, and that includes over 100 attorneys. So we are a very large regional environmental advocacy, law, and policy outfit. We are a nonprofit. We are 501c3, so we're nonpartisan. We are very lucky that our development team raises our salary before the year starts. So we have the luxury of representing all of our clients for free. So we represent other nonprofits, sometimes communities, every now and then a municipality, but we thankfully don't have to worry about only filing lawsuits or taking on projects that might give us attorney's fees. I don't know if any of y'all are lawyers, but understand there's some fee shifting provisions in some laws. We don't have to worry about that. We can work with groups at their local zoning commission. We can represent them before a board and commission. We can work with them on passing a bill. So it's really a luxury and an honor that we are able to do that with all of our partners without having to charge them, because as you know, legal fees can be quite expensive. We are blessed to have so many partners, environmental groups, environmental justice groups, and just communities. And especially here in North Carolina, there are so many great groups that we are just really thankful to work with day in and day out. We couldn't do the work we do without them. They bring us the best ideas, the biggest problems, and we work together to solve those problems. That picture, I thought y'all might find it interesting. Every year we have a staff retreat, which is so fun. And my husband always says, y'all just didn't go to camp enough when you were little. You just can't stay away from each other, and you can't stop going hiking and meeting and doing fun stuff like that. So, well, okay, you're just jealous. But he's a corporate lawyer. But that is, our staff retreat is at Montreat every year. They are very nice to us, and we can fit everybody in. They service those great family style meals. It's a beautiful area where we can hike and mountain bike and play tennis or take a nap, whatever, during our free time. So they have hosted us for several years now, and I know they had damage and stuff too during the hurricane, but I follow them on social media. It seems like they're building it back, building things back, and didn't have as much damage as maybe could have. I guess that's a way to look at it. So that's some SELC folks at Montreat. We also, as I mentioned, have an Asheville office in North Carolina. So, Chapel Hill is our biggest legal office. In Asheville, we have about 8 staff. They mostly do forest work because they're right there in the Hill Pisgah forest. We work on clean air and we work on clean water. Those are 2 of our prime areas of work and expertise. We also work on land, and by that I mean special places and national parks and wildlife refuges. We also have a wildlife team. So one of our first wildlife cases is still going on 3 years later, and that was the reintroduction of the red wolf out in the eastern part of the state and helping establish Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge. Can y'all hear me? I'm sorry, my voice is kind of, I was at that football game yesterday. That might have been back, but I'm not sure. I clearly did not yell loud enough. Some of our partners that y'all might recognize and know and may be involved with, I'll just kind of lift up here, because I know Ashley said y'all are doers and you're active, and these are great groups for y'all to engage with or get involved with. We work a lot with the Haw River Assembly, headquartered in Bynum, but my staff spends a lot of time on the Haw. We take our interns paddling there every summer, and we do a lot of work with them, particularly on keeping industrial toxins out of drinking water. We, of course, work with the Sierra Club day in and day out. We work with the Neuse Riverkeeper. We work with the North Carolina Coastal Federation out on the coast. We work with a group based in Charlotte that they have staff around here called Clean Air NC. They do a lot of air quality testing, community work. We work with various chapters of the NAACP. Out west, our main partner is called Mountain True, and they have 2 riverkeepers there, the Broad Riverkeeper and the Watauga Riverkeeper. So they are really hard hit in this storm, but they are out there. They took all the riverkeepers from North Carolina up there for 2 days last week to start doing well testing and river testing, because as the water comes back for people, they're making sure that it is not contaminated. So they're working with the Department of Health and Human Services to get those test kits out and get that tested, because it's really important if you have friends and family out there. test it, definitely boil it before you just start drinking it, because with all the floodwaters, there's been some contamination. So that's just a sampling of some of the groups we worked with. We also have a big focus on environmental justice. We don't have a separate team. Instead, we weave it through all of our work. So we have the head of our environmental justice initiative, who I'm lucky enough to work with here in town, Chandra Taylor Sawyer, but we have lawyers in all of our offices doing that work. But also many of our air cases are also environmental justice cases. One of our landfill cases is also an environmental justice case. So it's really important work to us and our partners, and something that we'll have been doing always and will continue doing always. Same for climate change. We don't have a climate team. We lead it through all of our projects, and that is just becoming more and more imperative. The climate crisis is real, and it's kind of an all hands on deck situation. Our staff really feels it, and our partners really feel it. This is just a little sampling of some things that the Southern Environmental Law Center has accomplished. We found that lots of people like numbers, like, well, how do you measure things? What digits work? And so we've put together some of this. We've worked with other partners to keep offshore drilling off of the Atlantic. We have gotten 3 major pipeline projects canceled since 2020. That work is obviously still ongoing because they keep popping back up. We've helped get 23 gigawatts of solar installed or planned across the South. And you can read the slide. I probably don't need to read it to you, but these are some things that we are very proud of, especially the coal ash removal, and really thankful that a lot of that had happened before the hurricane, because that kind of stuff, if it's stored in an open lagoon, can really take apart a community, really damage a community. So it's good that a lot of that had already gotten remediated. I am gonna now share a video with y'all. Sorry to have someone else speaking, but it's something we put together about wetlands. But yes.
Speaking of coal ash.
Yes, sir.
Chapel Hill's got a problem with their police department sitting on a coal ash dump.
I know that, and I think the police department is finally moving. And we've worked with some local groups.
There's no way to do it without moving the whole building, or tearing it down, or?
I'm not sure what they're doing with the building. I thought just the staff was moving to a new building, but I'm not sure.
But if it's a new building.
I thought they were leaving the whole thing and moving it somewhere else.
That's what I think. Yeah, I didn't mean moving the structure. I meant the department was moving, but I'm not 100%
So
sure.
they're having to tear it down if it's.
Probably. We're also working with some community groups and the university on the coal-fired steam plant.
Well, that university's got a huge problem.
They do have a huge problem, so we're getting some studies done and having meetings once a month, making very slow progress, but a hopeful thing would be to get that plant shut down and get a new source of energy for the university and turn the railroad into like a rails to trails kind of project.
That'd be so much money for the community. If you converted it to a trail line, so much money would come in.
Yes, it would be such a great thing, right? So,
and that's why you're moving your offices a block down this way, so you can get away from that old coal ash.
that and like lease expiring, other sexy things like that. That's right, John. Okay, so this video is about some of our wetlands work, which will set the stage a little bit for some of my next comments. So, let's see.
In North Carolina, our wetlands are remarkable and beautiful. They're a transition zone between our land and our waterways. They guard our communities against flooding. They prevent pollution from entering our drinking water sources, and they put food on our tables.
Not everybody has access to the water. They rely on people like us to actually provide them with good seafood. Bait right there. Without the wetlands, we wouldn't be able to do that.
We as Southerners who live, play, and work in a specific region are caretakers, right? People have been utilizing the coast and the wetlands to sustain themselves for generations. We have a big resource here, so we need to be extremely responsible.
They could probably be in front of the docks. My name is John Millett. I am co-owner of Southern Breeze Seafood in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Commercial fisherman and charter boat captain. Been doing this my whole life. Traveled the world, but there's nothing like home. Look kind of like right towards the houses on the point. You see them? Just look at the surface of the water. You think of the wetlands, you think shrimp, you think oysters, you think clams and all that stuff, which is all well and good. But with me being an offshore fisherman, a lot of people don't understand the connection. This is the mouth of the New River. Basically the nursery, it all starts back here. The bait fish that's in here gets pushed into the ocean. Just the basic food chain that we all learned about as kids. Inland waterways and wetlands, clean water, it's the lifeblood of everything we do. It feeds us.
For over 50 years, we have enjoyed broad wetland protections through administrations of both parties under the Clean Water Act. Now, we're singing a different tune. In 2023, the United States Supreme Court handed down a decision in a case called Sackett versus EPA that narrowed wetland protections like we've never seen before. North Carolina has embraced the Sackett decision. Over 2 million acres of wetlands in our state are at risk of destruction. They're our best natural guards against the back-to-back hurricanes that we've been seeing. They also are carbon sinks. They store carbon and they sustain our fisheries that are so important to our culture.
My name is Ricky Moore. I'm the owner of Saltbox Seafood Joint located in Durham, North Carolina that serves North Carolina seafood from North Carolina fisherfolk. The goal is to evoke emotions. From my perspective as a business owner, a restaurateur, and a chef, I'm always thinking about what am I doing, what can I be doing? I think about sense of place, authenticity. When I educate people and they connect with it, is super important. Now I have customers and they know it's in season. They'll say, hey, is bluefish ready yet? Oh, what about soft shell crab? Hey, is sheep's head available? One of the biggest concerns I have is water quality. So that water quality is not good. That sort of like deters the population of the fish. You know, they won't come back. Without the wetlands, there's no place for the species or the seafood to reproduce, grow. That marsh, man, is really, really important.
In the Southeast, our seafood industry wouldn't exist without our wetlands. And the decision that came from the Supreme Court puts our families and communities at risk. SELC is working every day to restore protections for our valuable wetlands. We are involved in a case that's pending in our backyard in eastern North Carolina, where a landowner is seeking to further dismantle wetland protections. We refuse to stand by and allow them to do that.
I wanted to show you that video because a lot of our work right now involves wetlands. As Kelly, my colleague, told you, they are really at risk right now. And another reason I want to show you that was that we have been working really hard to work with messengers that get to everyday people. You know, it's hard to listen to a lawyer talk all day about Section 404 and Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, but if you can have a guy like Ricky Moore, who is an award-winning chef, talk about not being able to do his job or serve his industry without wetlands, it's just a lot more impactful. On the wetlands case that we're working with out on the Pasquotank River that Kelly mentioned, our clients are the National Wildlife Federation and the North Carolina Wildlife Federation, because they too, you know, these are duck hunters and fisher people and hikers, and they just really help us show how important wetlands are to everything that we do. We do have more wetlands in the eastern part of North Carolina. There's no denying that, but there are some in the western part of the state, and it's important that we protect all of them. So we are working through cases. We are working at the General Assembly trying to get them to restore the wetlands protections that North Carolina had in place. We're doing communications campaigns like that one. We worked with the governor to help him pass an executive order about conserving 1 million acres of wetlands over the next 10 years. You know, sometimes it's going to involve all of our partners who do the land trust work. I mean, sometimes it's going to be buying important wetlands and placing them in conservation easements just to keep development out and to make sure that they keep our ecosystem functioning. So we're also working with a group of expert scientists to think of ways to use the Endangered Species Act to protect wetlands. We have a lot of species that are listed as endangered, or we might seek to have them listed, and they need to live in a certain place, like a wetland. So kind of coming in the back door, maybe using that statute to protect a species and the place where it lives, which would be sort of like a double whammy, you know, and get both things done. Yes, sir?
Where does the water from the campus here go to get to the Atlantic Ocean? Or, I don't think it gets to the Mississippi River.
No, we have 17 river basins in North Carolina. 5 of them flow to the Gulf, 12 flow to the Atlantic. And I imagine the water, you know, wastewater from this town goes, eventually makes its way to the Haw, which makes its way to the Cape Fear. Yeah.
Okay.
Flows towards Jordan Lake.
Okay, yeah, okay, makes sense.
So, environmental protection should not be partisan. Here's Richard Nixon signing the Clean Water Act into effect, and George Bush Sr. also passed several environmental laws. But it has become, it's really important to have a separation of powers between the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. And SELC works in all three. We have folks that go to court, we have lobbyists, and then the executive branch, we work with our agencies, the Department of Environmental Quality and the Coastal Resources Commission, to help pass rules, to make sure those rules are enforced, to try and get the best permits for industry to do its business. Over the past 12 to 14 years, the separation of powers in North Carolina has really been at risk. We have had some changes in our legislature. It has become much more conservative and actually anti-environment. And they have been passing laws, chipping away over time, which also impacts the judicial branch. I just listed a few here. I'm sorry, it's very text heavy, but just last session, the legislature raised the age for retirement for North Carolina Supreme Court justices, and it was 72. They've raised it to 76, so the Chief Justice Paul Newby can stay on longer. He is a very anti-environmental judge. They changed the way you could appeal from the Court of Appeals up to the Supreme Court. It used to be if you had the Court of Appeals that has 3 judges ruling on a case, and if one person disagreed in your favor, you could automatically appeal it to the Supreme Court. They changed the law so now that the Supreme Court has much more discretion over which cases they can bring up to themselves. This is the state Supreme Court. In the legislature, you've probably been reading for years about the gerrymandering, both racial and partisan. We have enjoyed for a few years actually having 7, I'll say, blue congresspeople and 7 red congresspeople, which is reflective of our state, right? We're as purple as you can get. With some changes that happened in the General Assembly last fall when the House obtained a supermajority. The Senate already had one. They can override any veto that Governor Cooper makes, and it's made it a lot more difficult to block bad legislation. So once that happened, they were able to pass new congressional maps, and we're getting ready to go back to either 3 Democratic congresspeople and 11 Republican, or possibly 4 and 10. So it's going to go back to just something that doesn't represent us. So it really impacts what's going on up in Washington and here in North Carolina. It makes it harder to do my job in enforcing environmental laws. I'm going to skip over that because that's just more sadness about our state, House, and Senate. All the slides I did make before Kamala Harris was on the ballot, before all the Mark Robinson last final news, so maybe some things may change. Maybe there will be some more environmentally friendly people elected, or people will change their positions. We've really been struggling lately with the executive branch because with a governor who really embodies protecting the environment and places emphasis on that, he had really good appointments on boards and commissions. These are the groups that really get into the nitty-gritty when it comes to environmental work, and it's people that we practice before all the time. We work with on permits, on rules, on regulations, on policies. The General Assembly last session passed this Senate Bill 512, which changed the makeup. The governor is supposed to have the majority of appointments to these boards and commissions, and the legislature changed that requirement and made it so that some other council and state members could appoint people to these boards and commissions, and boy, they loaded them up with puppets, I will tell you. And so we are having trouble getting drinking water standards passed for PFAS, PFOA, and 1,4-dioxane. They just keep blocking it, blocking it, blocking it. The Coastal Resources Commission is allowing destruction of wetlands, granting permits for things that should not even be considered. And so we are really seeing the impact of the legislature reaching down into these boards and commissions that are so important to our work. We are partnering with the governor's office on litigating those cases in court. You have one question?
How many lawyers are now in the legislature compared to what they used to be?
I don't know. There's a fair number of lawyers, but what I think is still happening is, you know, we have a citizen legislature in North Carolina, and that means it's people, it's not their full-time job. They don't get paid very much money, and that's why we've seen a lot of people retiring from the legislature, because these sessions go on and on and on. So if you're an architect, or you work at a law firm, or you're a dentist or a teacher, you can't move from Haywood County to Raleigh for months and months and months and months and months. So now what we're just seeing is a lot more retired folks being in the legislature, which is great. I love retired people. I can't wait to be one. Lots of consultants, which I don't even really know what that means. I don't know how they make their money, what their career was. But there's always a good number of lawyers in the legislature, retired or not, but I don't know the number. But some of them still will say, don't pass this bill, it's unconstitutional. And even some of the lawyers, oh, it's gonna be fine. So I don't know the exact number.
What lawyers do is help set minimums in codes.
That's right. Some of them do.
Well, a lot of them get involved in, anyway.
Yeah, I hear you.
Trying to protect life and limb.
Indeed, that's right. We're thankful for that. So when the going gets tough, you know what they say, the tough get going. We at the Southern Environmental Law Center are not gonna stop. We are gonna keep our hopes up and our spirits up, and we are gonna continue doing our traditional work. This is just a map of the state, as you can see, and it shows some of the things that we're working on. There's no way I can fit all of them on there, but, and if you can see in this map, hopefully like the faint green, that's wetlands. Our GIS folks layered that on. The bright green are federally protected areas like the National Forest and the Redwood area. The purplish red is where there's a high concentration of hog farms in our state. As you know, we produce a lot of hogs in the state. So we have our standard cases that we work on and we love to talk about, and we have a good deal of success. And one is at Lake Matamesquite. Has anybody out here ever been to Lake Matamesquite? It's down east, and it is a beautiful lake, and it's where large populations of snow geese and tundra swan come overwintering. So a good time to go out there is January, February, when they are traveling to warmer climes, but thousands of them land in it. If I could describe, it's not just the beauty of all these birds, but the sound is crazy with all these birds. But anyway, the North Carolina General Assembly made a budget appropriation to a particular company to sell its algicide to the Fish and Wildlife Service to apply on the lake. The lake is there's not a lot of flowing water in there. It does get a little bit stagnant and has some algae problems, probably why the birds like to come there. But this algicide was a known toxic to birds. I mean, it said on the label on the can, do not apply this in places where birds are. It's a really shallow lake too. So our partners out there, the North Carolina Coastal Federation, North Carolina Wildlife Federation, went crazy thinking like this is gonna harm the birds. So we had to file a federal injunction over Memorial Day weekend to get the Fish and Wildlife Service not to apply that algicide. And Judge Boyle in the Eastern District of North Carolina, who is a Reagan appointee, very conservative judge, sided with us and ordered the Fish and Wildlife Service not to apply the algicide. They're having to do some more studies, and we're hoping they'll just run out of steam and give up on the plan, but we're keeping that case going. So that's an example of something our wildlife team works on. We recently, you can see where it says the Sampson County landfill. There's a little community called Rose Hill where this landfill is sited. It's one of the biggest landfills in the country. It takes waste from 70 counties in North Carolina.
Maybe ours. We don't have a landfill anymore.
Yeah, it probably.
So maybe ours.
I'm sure. We used the Clean Water Act and the Resource Conservation Recovery Act to get a really great settlement for that community. We represented a group called EJCAN, Environmental Justice Community Action Network, that's based right there in Rose Hill, and we threatened to sue this giant waste company out of Canada, GFL. You've seen their name on the dumpsters and stuff. It stands for Green for Life, which is kind of funny. But anyway, we took our communications work. We took 3 pretty young lawyers on this case, working with this community for 2 years, and got a great settlement. The landfill is no longer going to accept waste with PFAS in it. They were accepting some waste from Comores, which is another thing you've probably heard of up in Fayetteville that contaminated the Cape Fear. They're not going to take PFAS waste anymore. They're going to provide filters to that community for their homes, for their drinking water, because the groundwater leaching out of a landfill that takes hazardous waste can contaminate the water. They are going to do drone monitoring to check the methane in the air from these things. So it's a really, maybe it's going to become a model landfill, I don't know, but and they're going to build a community center for the clients. So we're really excited about that work and hope to replicate it. We are now getting calls from people that live around landfills all over the country. So maybe we're going to open a new team, our landfill team, we'll see. We have a team of lawyers that work day to day at the Utilities Commission in the basement of the Dobbs building in Raleigh. And if you've never been there, I hope you never have to go there. It's like the grimmest place ever, but they go and participate in hearings and expert testimony all the time, working on Duke Energy's carbon plan. It was put in place by the legislature. It was actually a good piece of legislation requiring reductions in North Carolina's carbon emissions and putting a lot of the onus on the utility. But these lawyers have to go hold the big utility accountable every day to just push for as much renewable energy as we can get, and as little delay as we can get, because as you know, we're already almost too late on reducing our carbon.
Mary McLean, we had a Sunday school, an Earth Care Sunday school class last year, and one of the classes was specifically focused on clean energy and emphasized the importance of engaging with the Utilities Commission on Duke's carbon plan proposals and renewals. You may be planning to do this at the end with calls to action, but a couple of the calls to action that we put up on the screen for the folks who attended the class were from you all to engage, and how important it is for just regular citizens to engage in that, because that's really where the game is. I'm not telling you that.
It really is. You're right, because I can tell y'all to call your legislators, but y'all have great legislators that are very pro-environment. Senator Meyer, Representative Wansey, and Representative Price all always answer our call and do the right thing. They're just in the minority, so it's hard for them to get things accomplished. So that's why I like these boards and commissions, like the Utilities Commission and these others. It's very important for them to hear from y'all. Y'all, as in all of us, all North Carolinians.
I'm new to the state, so in previous states, you could actually contact representatives from outside of your area, and they would take your email. In North Carolina, is that, could you still contact people outside of your area as just a North Carolinian and say, I may not live in your district, or not even mention that, but I'm concerned about this issue?
You certainly could. Each one probably has their own opinion, each legislator, on how much they're going to weigh that versus one of their own constituents. Some of them don't even really have to listen to their constituents because the maps are gerrymandered and they're going to get elected anyway, but we should not contact them for that reason. And so we often, if you take any of the materials from the back, and I've got our website at the end and the General Assembly website, you can type in your name and number and contact your legislator, but you can also click on any legislator and send them an email. Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure, and that would be great. And also talk to your friends. I'm just trying to give y'all some stories to tell people and let folks know what's happening in the state. I'm mindful of the time, but because our legislature is so hard to operate in, and our courts are hard to operate in here in North Carolina, and now they're really eating away at our boards and commissions, we are getting creative and trying some new things. With all of this funding coming down from the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, we have partnered with some strange bedfellows. We are working with the RTI, the Research Triangle Institute, and we are a hub for a giant grant coming down from EPA, and they called SELC to work with them because they know we work in communities and have a lot of contacts in communities. So we are working with them on their Thriving Communities grants. We have 3 lawyers that are going around the state talking to communities, asking them to apply for grants, and then connecting them with technical assistance, because it's hard to do all that paperwork to get these grants, but some of these things can really change communities. So that's a new thing for a bunch of lawyers to be doing. And we're so thankful for the opportunity, and we're gonna work on that even more. We have some energy lawyers working with the Solar for All grants and working in small communities around North Carolina, trying to get community solar installed. Y'all might have talked about that during your clean energy talk last year. We were working with the community in Enfield, one in Roanoke Rapids. We're also working to make sure that municipal policies about putting solar panels on your house are worth it to the homeowners to do, that it's not prohibitively expensive. We've got a matter going on in Stantonsburg, North Carolina, which is right outside of Rocky Mount on that front. We do a lot of work on the biomass industry, and that's wood pellets. Do you know what I'm talking about? And that's the process of chopping down whole trees, converting them into these compressed wood pellets, putting them on a giant ocean liner and shipping them overseas, because in Europe and the UK, one of their big facilities, Drax, is subsidized to use wood pellets as clean energy, which it is not clean because it's chopping down great carbon sinks, our trees. It's polluting as it goes across, and then burning wood pellets is barely cleaner than burning coal.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a smoke and mirrors thing. So our biomass team doesn't even have to worry about the legislature here or the courts here, because we work with lobbyists in the EU and in Parliament to try and get these subsidies to get reduced or taken away completely by telling stories about what's happening here in North Carolina. We have a lot of wood pellet mills here. We recently filed a complaint with the Securities Exchange Commission. That is nowhere we have ever been, but against Enviva, which is one of the biggest wood pellet facilities, for all kinds of securities claims, like misleading their shareholders about how pro-environment they are and how they're creating this clean energy source. So we don't really know what will happen, but it's just another little lever to push in there. We had some folks work in front of the Real Estate Commission in North Carolina, which we didn't even know there was a Real Estate Commission in North Carolina. We had to find their address and figure out when their meetings were to get one addition, hopefully we'll get more, to the form that a realtor shows people when they're selling a house, and they had to add a place on there that you had to indicate if this home had flooded before.
Right. And flood insurance.
Yeah, that's a whole federal tangle. We do have some folks in Washington working on that, but we're hopeful that we can improve floodplain mapping in the western part of the state and rebuild in a more resilient way. We've got a lot of folks working on resilience policies and matters as well. But so that's just a sampling of some of the things that we are doing. I don't know if I'm going to leave some time here in a sec for any matters that are on your mind or cases you've heard of us working on. I'm happy to talk through, and I know there's a lot of stuff I've thrown at you. Next legislative session, here are some things that we and our partners are going to be working on. Improving landslide mapping. There's an office in the western part of the state that does that, and that's obviously going to change a lot after Hurricane Helene. So hopefully the legislature will fund that office and get that done really quickly, just to help with the rebuilding of roads and homes. Some more real estate closures, like I said, funding for drinking water protections out west. We're going to keep beating on wetland protection until the sun sets, for sure. Building codes, the legislature has stymied and rolled back a lot of energy efficiency codes and codes about how high a water heater has to be above the ground. It's not really in our lane. It's not really an environmental issue normally, but it does impact how, carbon emissions, which adds to the severity of these storms, but then it also adds to problems with homes flooding and getting washed away, as we've noticed in Hurricane Helene. So we're going to work on that. We are hoping to get some funding for passenger rail. A lot of money came down out of the BIL to North Carolina to develop high-speed rail between Raleigh and Richmond, and then we got money for studies for several other routes, like Raleigh to Wilmington. So we're really excited about the potential of a train that could go all the way from Wilmington to, say, Salisbury or Charlotte. Wouldn't that be great? And so we're going to be working on that. That would take some cars off the road and really help with our carbon emissions. So back to y'all's questions about what can we do. SouthernEnvironment.org is my organization's website, and we've got lots of action alerts on our website. So that link, if you were able to click through my presentation on that, that would take you to a form about wetlands where you could contact legislators and boards and commissions. So I wouldn't try and type that in. Just go on our webpage and search for wetlands and you'll find it. Again, get engaged with some of our partner groups, especially like the North Carolina Conservation Network, the North Carolina League of Conservation Voters. Those folks are pumping out action alerts all the time on ways to communicate with your legislators. And let's just make them tired of us. Let's just keep telling them. Again, your legislators are great, so I always hate to say that, but talk with them about what they think you could do to help. And to John's point about contact the North Carolina Utilities Commission, contact the Coastal Resources Commission, That middle website is the website for the North Carolina General Assembly. You can also just Google the North Carolina General Assembly, and they have a function on there where you can type in your name and address, and it will direct you to your legislator. So I encourage folks to do that. Write letters to the editor. And just talk to your friends when you're at church or out in community or at parties. Tell them how dire things are and that we really need to make some changes here. I'll take questions now.
What kind of help do you give churches?
So we have worked with North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light on some matters. I don't know really what you mean by what kind of help do we give churches.
Well, churches are free to do a lot more than nonprofits. And there are a lot of Presbyterians that are still out there, even though they don't all agree. I think they probably agree on climate change a lot more than some of the other faith groups. And but it's we're a whole lot freer than the ordinary client, but we don't necessarily have the money of the fuel industry.
We're certainly open to, we can,
else,
I think we've represented a church before about putting solar panels on, like a church in Charlotte. There are ways we can do it. I don't think we can probably take every case you have, but.
Well, the Historic District Commission stopped us from doing solar panels that could be seen.
We
in
see
the
that a lot,
historic
and we see
district.
homeowners associations putting
Stuff like
lots of
that
restrictions.
that needs to be nursed through.
Mayor McLean, you just said you can't take every case. Can you talk for just a second about how you all do decide which cases to take and how they need to be precedent setting and important?
Sure. We have several ways of getting cases, and again, we are a nonprofit, so we have a board of directors. That's my boss, and we have to get all of our matters, whether they're litigation or otherwise, approved by them. We have to take on things that are in the public interest. So a lot of the things we work on, like cleaning up coal ash or the landfill, some citizens may be harmed by that too, with like medical expenses or property damage. We have lots of law firms that we work with in conjunction, and they might take those damages cases. We work with groups to protect the natural resource or stop pollution. So that's one thing. We get a lot of calls. Hi, my next door neighbor built their house in such a way that their driveway is running a sheet of stormwater onto my property. Can you help me? And that is illegal and that is bad, and we direct them places, but we don't represent folks who can normally pay a lawyer or figure out their own way to do something. We represent nonprofits and other things in the public interest. But we take cases, some cases we get over the telephone. Our receptionist will answer a call one day and somebody in Jamestown or somewhere is there's a big development coming on, there's a stormwater violation, and we will get involved. Sometimes, we get crazy calls too, and it's fun, but we can't take them all on. Our dear and beloved and brilliant clients and organizations bring us all sorts of cases, especially our river keepers who are out and about seeing all the harms that are going on. So they will bring a case to us and say, hey, we're having a problem, or this mining permit's gonna get issued for this swamp that I live nearby, and we're not gonna be able to figure it out anymore. And we'll dig in and see that we could work on that and hopefully change water quality standards or something. And then we have sort of precedent-setting cases like John is talking about, and those are cases that we start thinking about and working on and filing in all of our regions, like cleaning up coal ash lagoons was one of those. We got involved in one instance in North Carolina against Duke Energy out in Wilmington, and then the next thing you know, the Department of Environmental Quality sort of over-filed on that case and filed its own case against that, and filed a case against 13 other sites. So we had to intervene in all of those. So it was, all of a sudden, we were all coal ash lawyers, because we were definitely like the dog that caught the car. And we had to shift a lot of resources there, but those cases were great, and now we've gotten Duke Energy to agree to remove all the coal ash out of lagoons, put them in safe line landfills. So we've replicated that. We've taken it to our folks in Virginia, our folks in Alabama are bringing those cases now, our folks in Georgia. So there's that kind of precedent-setting thing, and that's what we're doing on wetlands right now. We're being super careful on which cases we engage in. There's another outfit called the Pacific Legal Foundation, which is a property rights law firm. They represented the Sackett's in that case that Kelly talked about before the Supreme Court. So they are doing everything they can to limit the application of the Clean Water Act and make wetland protection as narrow as they can. Sometimes it's not helpful for the Southern Environmental Law Center to get involved because that will just make them angrier and make them push even harder. And we're super worried about things getting up to the United States Supreme Court because they would love to make the protections even narrower. So we have to be really strategic about who we represent in some of those cases and where we take them.
I was wondering if it's kind of specific, but do you know any relationship between exposure to poor air quality in early life and later development of antisocial behaviors?
I don't know about the antisocial behaviors, but I definitely know that air quality concerns are a problem. It can lead to asthma, underdevelopment, some cancers. So if that was an issue with the landfill, and there's also an issue with utilities. So we have an air team. It's small but mighty, and are analyzing permits from paper mills and fertilizer manufacturers and mines to try and limit that air stuff. Clean Air NC, one of our partners, they put out as they give citizens air monitors to have in their communities, and they use the citizens' data and research to compile limits and what's going on. So that would be a good group to get organized with. And the American Lung Association, I know, puts out science and research. I'm sorry I don't have that exact connection, but I would not be surprised if there's a connection.
I'm curious about trends you're seeing in the other southern states that might be distinct from what's happening here. I'm sure there's a lot of similarities across the states, but I'm curious what else is going on.
So some southern states, some states, maybe not the southern ones, when Sackett came down, for example, and eliminated a lot of federal protections for wetlands, some states said, oh, we should pass our own wetlands protections under our state law. Let's do that. North Carolina went the other way and eliminated our state wetlands protections. Most of our southern states are not super friendly. Virginia does have good wetlands protections and let them in place. Virginia is a little more progressive on some things, like they passed a clean car standard in Virginia, and they passed a clean energy law that's a lot more aggressive than North Carolina. So we sort of tried to use them as a model when we're working on the carbon plan legislation. So I'd say Virginia in our region is probably a little more ahead. Our folks in Alabama and Tennessee are struggling. Those states are pretty conservative on an environmental front.
There's a solar group in North Carolina that's active. They are based out of Alabama. They're called Eagle Solar.
Okay. Is it a
And
private solar installer?
They're located in Alabama because Alabama has the highest utility rates
They do.
in the country. And, but they are marketing in North Carolina. And they got successful projects.
Great.
Probably all over the South. Eagle Solar.
Okay.
Check
I'm
them.
sure my Alabama colleagues know of them.
Check them out.
I will. Okay, thanks.
Right.
Any other questions? I know, mindful that we've got worship coming up. Can we just give a round of applause?
All day, but look us up, give us a call. I'm happy to stay after for a few minutes and take questions or concerns, and, thank you, Ashley, for having me, and thank you all for what you're doing here at church. It's great, and it starts here. Oh yeah, there's some
So
material back there if you like.
back there are lots of materials, and I hope you'll get involved and make a contribution to the Southern Environmental Law Center if you are so moved.